All right, awesome. We are on air again, and I actually have a guest this time. Uh, this is Paleo Bytes, where I, Paleo, like to talk to pretty much anybody and everybody who wants to get their opinion heard. I want to hear what you have to say. And this week, I have the neo-atheist Mike Phelps on. Michael Phelps, sorry. And unfortunately, he's not actually related to the Westborough Baptist Church people, because that'd be kind of cool. But he's still pretty cool anyway. So
I like to think the name Michael Phelps makes me cool enough as it is. I mean, it is a fairly famous name from an Olympic swimmer, so
yes, it is.
Just give me a little notoriety at least.
Yes, as if you're not notoriety enough.
Very true.
So you consider yourself a scientist, geneticist, engineer, skeptical debunker, atheist, and former world traveler,
yes,
among other things. The thing that I find probably the most interesting that you have listed on there is, honestly, former world traveler. Where have you been?
I've got 26 countries under my belt right now. I've been on 3 continents. Was in the military for 6 years, so being in the military, I got to travel a lot. Every 4-day weekend when I was in Germany, I actually went to a different country in Europe. So I got to see a lot of the northern Europe. I actually got to go to where my ancestors lived hundreds upon hundreds of years ago. I mean, the last name Phelps is Welsh. So being able to actually see Wales, see where my ancestors actually come from, was something that was a life-changing event for me. I've gotten to see Greece. I've gotten to see the Vatican. Got to say, the Vatican architecturally is an amazing product. What's inside it, not so much. Just the architecture of Europe was something I fell in love with. There's just so many different architectural influences in Europe itself. You can drive from country to country. The architectural differences is so unique and dynamic. It's an amazing experience to actually be able to see the history that existed there, and actually touch buildings that are hundreds upon hundreds of years old.
I think that's probably the same sort of rush I get when I pick up a fossil.
Yeah, that's probably being able to see where that's probably the feeling I had when I actually went to Wales. Just being able to see where my ancestors came from, see where some of the mindsets that I have sort of were passed on from generation to generation, and how my family came to be Americans. Where they were before that is something that has always astounded me, and was something that I always wanted to sort of get to cross off my bucket list, which was an amazing experience to actually get the chance to do.
Well, cheers to you on that. I have no idea where my family is from. So you mentioned Army, and I know there is a secondary Army that you used to be affiliated with, and that would be the Salvation Army. A little bit different. At least I think it would be.
There's similarities. The uniforms are pretty similar, not to mention just the... as a Salvationist, being in the Salvation Army, the mindset that exists there is that you are a soldier for the Lord. You are someone that is willing to risk all for the being that spoke you into existence. With that being the case, there are some unique psychological profiles you meet in that type of setting.
Right. So I'm assuming you were born into the Salvationist concept, or was this something that your family was just like, hey, we're doing this now?
It was more something that my family said, hey, we're doing this now, let's go to the Salvation Army. I'm like, okay. Then it basically turned into a weekly event. It got to the point where I was going to the local Salvation Army 4 times a week just to actually interact with other people that were spiritual in the same context that I consider myself, which was kind of weird because it was more of a it was more of an urbanized church, and I've always been more, I I really don't like that type of atmosphere. It had a Southern Baptist atmosphere to it, which I really, really found weird once I started to think about it. So it was kind of interesting. It had its challenges, though.
Such as?
Such as something I had to sign at the age of 14 to say I wouldn't masturbate, that I wouldn't actually drink, that I would actually give my life to the Lord. And then after that, I had to go through like a month-and-a-half course to learn how to be an enlisted member of the Salvation Army at the age of 14.
Wow. Talk about a low draft age.
Yeah, the conception of actually signing my life away at the age of 14 really didn't play well with me, and I actually separated from my family going there and went to a Assembly of God church after that as sort of my gateway drug that sort of led me into atheism.
Okay. So how, I mean, I don't know actually anything about the Assembly of God beliefs or anything other than, hey, Jesus, I assume. So how different was that versus the Salvation Army? I mean, obviously, like you said, it was a gateway to the atheism thing, but what is your deconversion, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, I guess my deconversion is actually in two phases. Being a soldier in the Salvation Army was kind of a weird experience. A brief explanation of what a soldier in the Salvation Army is. A soldier is a salvationist who is at least 14 years of age and has, with the approval of the Salvation Army Pastoral Care Council in each Salvation Army Corps, which is based off of the geographical location of the local chapter you're a part of, been enrolled as a warrior in the Christian denomination of the Salvation Army. You actually, after signing the Salvation Army Articles of War, yes, they actually do call them Articles of War, and you actually, that thing I was saying that where you don't jerk off, you don't drink, that's the thing that you sign. It's the Salvation Army's Articles of War. So you are actually learning to wage spiritual war against the devil himself.
Okay.
That was crazy sort of didn't play well with me. So I actually went to Grace Assemblies of God Church here in Syracuse, central New York, where I'm from, and sort of went there while I was in high school. After that, I sort of went into the military, went over to Germany, and once I actually got to see how religion's treated in Europe, that really cemented my deconversion. It helped me sort of understand that the world's bigger than just the religious aspect that exists within the continental U.S. itself.
Right. So what was the biggest difference you noticed between the European way of treating religion and the American way of treating religion then?
Well, Europe itself has such a civilized mentality. I know this sounds weird, but their mindset towards religion is so much more advanced than ours over here in the U.S. It seems like they at least are able to understand that if someone wants to be religious, they can be religious, but it doesn't have to dictate how they govern their people. And that was something that sort of rang true with me. I was wondering, why isn't that the case in the U.S.? I mean, I love my country. I love everything about my country, even after being in the military. I still love everything about this country. I mean, even with the religious leaders that do find their way into government, this country is still something that is near and dear to my heart. With that being the case, though, I dream of a country that isn't governed or dictated by religion itself. That's something that has always been a part of at least the underlying principles of what I perceive what government should be.
Awesome. So, while in the military, were you atheistic then? Were you coming out as atheist? Or were you still fairly religious? And if so, how did all of that affect your time in the military?
I was actually an atheist in the military. I did a few social experiments with while I was in the military. I did a little. I attended an open circle that was actually on Fort Hood when I got to Fort Hood in '09. Attended that for about a year and a half. Got to understand the New Age movement pretty well from that itself. But my time in the military helped me sort of fine-tune the person that Michael Phelps actually is. It helped me understand that atheism is something that's near and dear to me. It's something that secular activism is something that I will be a part of until the day I cease existence because of the injustices that exist because of religion. And my time in the military helped me realize that mindset and how important that whole ideological mindset is to me, how important that is to the root of who I am.
Awesome. So, did you feel as though you were isolated at all when you were in the military because of the atheism thing? Or were people just kind of like, yeah, whatever?
It depends. It was all based on the unit that I was in. I was actually in a unit where my leadership was somewhat religious, and that was being an atheist was frowned upon. There was other chain of commands I existed in that were more open to different perspectives in their units. It was all case-by-case basis. I would have to say that I did enjoy the more openly understanding unit commanders and chain of command than the overly religious companies and battalions that I was attached to. It gave me a newfound aspect for how important secularism actually is in the military, and how much is lacking towards understanding how important being of a secular mindset is when you're in the military.
Right.
That whole saying, "There's no atheist in foxholes," is something that is definitely not.
I hate that statement.
So do I.
That is one of a few things that'll just make me go, get it. No. Yes, the type of look that you're giving. That look.
Yes. That's basically my mindset on it. It's just, it made me sick to my stomach when I had to deal with those types of situations.
I don't blame you. So, pulling back a little bit, back into the Salvation Army, other than the having to basically sign away your life and say, I will not do XXX, were there any things that you noticed that are very, very specific in belief-wise to the Salvation Army that seem to be totally different than other denominations?
Well, one thing that's actually, I wouldn't say that's individualistic, but more established in the Salvation Army is the idea of a covenant, or that Salvationist soldiers are considered by their peers and by themselves to be converted warriors exercising holy passion to win the world for Jesus. And that you are actually, when you sign the Articles of War, you are giving your life to God to be a tool for His divine inspiration and His presence on earth.
So, I mean, the no masturbation actually, as my mind goes strange places with that.
Yeah, mine's did too, and I actually heard it, which was one of the sort of breaking. It's sort of it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Would probably be the best way to put it. That and the uniforms. When you actually
explain that to me. Uniforms. I had no idea they had uniforms.
Yes, there's actually the uniforms are based off the country in which you enlist, and are serving as an enlisted member in the Salvation Army. There's different uniforms for each rank, for each continent that you get indoctrinized on, and it's a really weird situation to get into. The uniform was what did it in for me. There's no way I'm walking around in a monkey suit every Sunday, basically just to please an imaginary man that doesn't even feel that he doesn't need to interact with me on a personal level. He's there, so just listen to the words in which are in the biblical text. Yeah, if I'm going to be dressing up every Sunday like a trained chimpanzee, you best believe I'm going to be doing it for a God that's going to be showing up every Sunday too. If I'm giving up my Sunday, you best believe that the divine being that I'm worshiping is going to be showing up and waking up early on Sundays too.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you.
But there are also junior soldiers that are actually from 7 to 13 that are actually trained. They're sort of the ROTC of the Salvation Army. They are the soldiers. They are the junior soldiers being trained to be soldiers, and it's sort of think of the Sunday school of any denomination, and that's what the junior soldiers are.
Okay. So they're in training to become the full-on, hey, I'm going to preach at you.
Yeah, but in some places, junior soldiers also wear a form of uniform, too. They're sort of like, let's say, the Cub Scouts and the Sunday school had a love child. It would be the junior soldiers.
Oh, dear. That's slightly scary.
It takes some getting used to. That's all I can say.
So, how are females viewed in the Salvation Army? Is this like the normal misogynistic, like women, you be quiet, you're not actually allowed to do this, or is it all accepting?
Something that I would give the Salvation Army credit for, if I'm to give them credit for anything, would actually be that they allow women as leaders in their spiritual activities. You actually do run into female officers, female enlisted members that are higher ranked. They do exist in the Salvation Army. That's something that at least they have going well for them. Their treatment of females is halfway decent. I mean, I've seen situations to where some males there are chauvinistic, but it's more individual-based situations than it being a Salvation Army issue.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So one of the things that came to mind about one of the things that you had to sign, going back to the no masturbation thing, how do they view the LGBT community? And has your opinion changed since you left that?
Yes, it has. I'm a huge activist for the LGBT community. I think that equal rights across the board are basically the best way to go. If you're going to allow heterosexual couples to marry, you need to extend that right to other couples that exist within the continental U.S. and beyond. I mean, you can't show favoritism towards one group and basically be showing prejudice against another. Our country has done that in the past with segregation and
Yep.
other things from a socialistic aspect, and it hasn't served us well. I mean, we're in the 21st century. You would expect us to sort of be past this by now. But the Salvation Army actually views homosexuals as burning in hell, fire and brimstone, great way to preach to them. I've actually heard some situations to where when some family members have heard that their children are considering attraction towards the same sex, that they actually have sent them to little camps that sort of break them of habits.
Pray the gay away, right?
Pray the gay away. And the weird thing about these Pray the Gay Away places is that they're more non-denominational groups. I mean, there are some that are ran by specific denominations, but it's just I don't really get the idea of why would you try to change someone when what they're doing isn't hurting anyone.
Right. I'm sorry, but me loving and being in love with another female, so what? And I mean, I identify as gender neutral anyway, but I'm still going to say, yeah, genetically, I will admit I am a female, and I have a sexual attraction to another female. I'm not hurting anybody. Unless I accidentally bonk heads with her, but,
I'm not even going to ask how that happens.
Okay, let's put it this way. If you're going to go hug someone and you're both trying to, like, lean down, you're going to end up hitting heads, okay?
No explanation needed. I'm not asking.
But, no, that's rather sad that that's what they choose to do. And, I mean, I'm assuming while you were in, you did actually believe at that particular point in time, or was it...
No.
Were you always like?
I would actually say that I always was for equal rights. That was one of the driving forces. When I actually got to read the documentation on the Salvation Army's literature for indoctrination of soldiers, it really made me sick to my stomach. Which really made me reconsider my position and ultimately led to me leaving the Salvation Army.
So, if you could pick out one thing in terms of all religions that you just want to yell and scream and throw pitchforks at, what is it?
Moses being a real person with no evidence that any being such as Moses ever existed. I mean, the things going on in Texas would be a prime example of that. I mean, why are we giving credit to a man that may not have even existed 3,000 years ago, credit for the foundation of our own country? That's something that I'm like, okay. This level of crazy could only come out of Texas or the Bible Belt itself.
I missed something. What is this about a 3,000-year-old guy? 3,000. Explain this. I don't watch TV, so.
Well, the situation with about a few months ago, back in 2014, a lot of one of the third largest distributor of textbooks in the continental U.S. decided to change the text of what the foundation of the Constitution is by saying that Moses inspired the Constitution. With that being the case, I scratched my head when I first saw that story. I've talked to Aaron Ra and Lelandra Ra just last week about the situation. So it's
a
weird type of mindset. It's just trying to wrap your mind around the conception that, so, Moses inspired this? Makes me scratch my head every time I think about it.
My co-host would have a shit fest if she heard that.
It makes me glad I'm a New Yorker, that's all I gotta say. I'm glad I'm as far away from that as possible. I'm in a blue state, and I'm in one of the most liberal states in the continental U.S. That being the case, yeah, I'm sorry, but I spent 3 years in Texas, and that was... If I never have to visit Texas again, that will be at least one accomplishment I feel would have been a success in my lifetime.
I lived there when I was a kid, both in Austin and the town outside of it called Taylor, Texas.
Well, see, Austin isn't bad. Austin's actually a pinnacle of hope for a state like that. But once you actually head towards Taylor, out towards the Colleen area, oh man, the further you get from Austin and just any major metropolis, oh man, it gets worse. I mean, even in some of the major cities, you see some bad stuff. Oh man, it's just the religious mindset in Texas. it's just wow. It blows you away once you have an interaction with that mindset down there. To, wow, what the fuck? Is this really how people think? It's like going back in time 100 years.
Yeah, I haven't been there recently, so... But no, I feel sorry for the people who are in that situation down there. And it's... At least from outside looking in, it almost feels like nobody wants to voice an opinion. It's like, just go with the sheeple. You'll be safe.
Yeah, but there's actually Bar Church in Texas, which is it's an oversimplification, but still, that's the mindset that exists there. You can basically go to church, be a good Christian, then go to the bar the next, right after the service, and have some fun drinking and being a heathen, I guess. Still trying to understand how that works from a biblical standpoint, but I guess
well, Jesus died for your sins, so no matter what you do, you'll be forgiven. Unless you kill yourself, or I think the other one is deny God.
Well, I actually think Jesus would be a great guy to know. I mean, this is somebody that was always partying. I mean, if you cut the guy, he bleeds wine. So, I mean, if he's going to be bleeding wine, not to mention the guy got some magic touch that he can make miracles happen. He can turn water into wine. I mean, this was a guy that knew how to party. If he's somebody that existed, I'm saying, forget the fact. You want to know the biggest crime that God would have done to mankind? Not only did you kill off Jesus, somebody that could actually not only live forever, but basically turn water into wine and basically cure the world of the absence of wine in it, but the guy was also made of bread. So, I mean, I'm really seeing Jesus is enough to turn some people into zombies. That's what I'm getting from this.
That needs to be a full-on quote in and of itself. I applaud you for that.
I've been saying that one for a few years. It's something that I usually go with.
So, before we came on air, you had mentioned that you were diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome.
Yes, high-functioning autistic, as of
right.
the DSM-5.
So, can you explain that a little bit further, what that entails, and do you think that has had any impact on religion basically just not sticking with you?
Yes, I would actually say that personally it has. I don't prescribe to the idea that all atheists are autistic or anything of that nature, because
I didn't mean to imply that.
No, I know. And that's not something you implied. I'm just saying that there was an article about back in 2012 that said that all atheists are in some way, shape, and or form have a higher facilitating ability to be autistic. That was something that made me scratch my head. But
all
yes,
the best people are crazy anyway.
something like that. But with that actually being the case, I would actually say that my autistic mindset, my wanting to question everything, was something that was developed in me at a very early age and only sprung up more from my neurological abnormality itself.
Okay. So, can you explain a bit what Asperger's syndrome is, then?
Asperger's is actually it's a higher functioning form of autism. It's on the autistic spectrum. It's high functioning autism. Socialistic tendencies are hard to pick up on, social cues, and just interacting with people in a socialistic dynamic.
Okay.
Is basically hindered. With medication, with focus, with concentration, you can overcome them as with the coping mechanisms that you personally find and come into contact with when you're actually going through developing through adolescence and just beyond. I mean, I find new coping mechanisms every day that help me actually manage my autistic tendencies.
Okay. Are you comfortable with sharing what your specific autistic tendencies are?
My fields of interest are basically my biggest coping mechanisms. The physical sciences would be one of the major things that I sort of lean towards. I mean, I've done 2 semesters of college as a math science major at a community college and bombed both semesters yet. I can basically... I'm going back. I keep saying I'm going back. It's just basically sitting down and basically making myself pay attention to going back. That's the biggest problem with that. But with that being said,
I can understand that.
I usually focus on the physical sciences as my coping mechanisms. When I've gone days without sleep researching scientific projects. I have done that so many times. It's something that's more than a hobby. It's a passion.
Good.
And that's something that would have to be one of my biggest coping mechanisms that are actually... That's my go-to. If everything else is basically gloom, despair, agony, and me, if I'm basically starting a research project, that helps sort of ring me in.
My mind just went...
I understand. I blame myself for not being interesting.
No, you are interesting. My mind just went totally out the window. Because you were mentioning research projects, and I started thinking about my own research that I do when it comes to the whole creationist thing. Well, physical sciences and creationism. Tell me.
Yeah, but I find that the physical sciences are basically the best way to combat creationist mindsets. If you can stick to the physical sciences, stick to the evidence that exists, when they start using biblical proof, it's like banging your head up against a wall. Debating someone that allows for the answer that God did it to be their go-to, they've already lost the debate from an inability to be able to question the universe. Because the second you settle for the answer, God did it, you basically limit yourself in some way, shape, and or fashion.
Right. So, is there any particular creationist argument that you're just like, what?
Genesis. 6-day creation story, not to mention, you throw that in with the young earth creationist that's a pre-supper.
Oh.
You have fun. It turns into you're banging your head against a wall.
My desk that I'm sitting at right now has an aluminum frame with a Lexan cover on top of it. So it's pretty damn durable. I draw. While I'm drawing, I listen to debates, I listen to podcasts. Well, I happened to be listening to Psi 10 Gate for the first time. That man is responsible for me having a 4-day bruise on my forehead. I hit my head on my desk that hard.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about you hitting your desk on your head, or your head on your desk.
But
however you want to put that.
Precepts.
The preceptors are a headache and a half. I mean, there are some religious individuals on YouTube I do consider friends. G-Man would be a prime example of someone I consider a friend. He's a priest-supper that actually breaks down the Bible and does preaching to the choir ministers. He's someone I actually, if you can get past the whole persona he does with the Bible and talk to him about something else, Gary is a completely likable guy. He is does a completely 180 in comparison to his ministry, quote-unquote ministry. I put that in quotations because that's just calling anything a ministry basically devalues it just to my mindset, because it's throwing the word ministry behind it means that there's some psychological trickery or scam going on with that basic premise in what you're trying to say. And you're basically trying to indoctrinate the masses.
Fair enough.
But yeah, there are some theists on YouTube that I do get along with. There are some that I basically won't give the time of day. I mean, Another one that is amazing to talk to is Venom Fang X. Sean is someone that is actually an interesting individual to sort of discuss things with, because when it comes to actually debating, he's one of the presuppers that knows his position and will argue until the end of days, and will be able to stand his own against anyone that he's debating. I wouldn't say that he's the greatest debater in the world, but he does know how to argue his perspective quite well.
Yeah, I've seen some of his older stuff. I know he left and came back. I don't know if he was banned or what happened. But it's... And I hesitate to really say anything because obviously I don't know the guy. But some of the arguments that I heard coming from him were just so childish. It's like, what?
That's his earlier stuff. He's refined his argument and perspective to where he's formative. I will go to sleep on the fact that debating Venom Fang X is something that is just weird, would be my perspective on it.
So, looking at the atheist movement as it is now, is there anything that you think as a whole the movement should or should not be doing? Like, guys, stop this, or guys, really, you should be focusing on this.
I would say diversity is something that is key to the movement's survival. I would say that being able to do something like secular TV, I know it's a self-plug there, but secular TV is a great example of what I'm sort of talking about here.
All right, I was going to say, you're a guest on the show. You plug what you want to plug.
But what we're trying to do with that project is we're trying to give a multi-format and a multi-spectrum voice for activists in the secular community. And we're even reaching out to secular theists, secular deists, and other perspectives that exist within secularism. Because secularism is something that crosses the divide. Atheist is what I am. Secular is what my position would belong to. If that makes sense. There's a demographic of what secularism really is. You can be a secular Buddhist. You can be a secularism master. With that being the case, understanding that there are respectable attributes to the theist community and just religious organizations out there in some way, shape, and or form gives you a unique perspective on those organizations itself.
Right. Okay. So, I don't know how to phrase this question.
I don't know how to answer it without it being phrased.
Nah. I can't figure out how to actually phrase it, so I will move on. You mentioned clean energy sources in your contact with me. What is your preferred source of clean energy? Do you like solar? Do you like wind, water?
I'm a fan of fusion.
Okay.
Once we actually start tapping into hydrogen fuel cells and actually using stuff like that, those are my favorite forms of renewable energy sources, because the byproduct from that is actually, the waste product of that is H2O, which is water. And that's something that would actually be able to not only facilitate us on planet Earth, but as you also saw, space exploration is something that I focus on too.
Right, and terraforming.
Terraforming and hydrogen fuel cells. Hydrogen fuel cells are something that would be a great power source to use because of the waste byproduct and just how we can actually break down hydrogen and oxygen into multiple forms at the atomic level once we actually learn to manipulate the atomic structure of a molecular pattern.
Right. So we do have to actually learn how to do it first before we can actually go out and really use
we
it.
can actually use the technology of that nature, yes, we do need to know how to reorganize the basic atomic structure of a form and just the chemical components that exist within that structure itself at the molecular and subatomic level.
So let's do alchemy, essentially.
Simplistically, I guess that would be the best way to outline, yes.
So what do you think actually got you into the whole terraforming and space exploration thing? Are you a Trekkie, or is that just something...
Gene Roddenberry is a hero of mine. Just some of the writings that he's done. Star Trek wasn't the only thing he did. Earth Final Conflict was another amazing work of art that he worked on that was sort of a futuristic version of society itself. More realistic version, if you want to say that's realistic. It did exist in present day, at least. But Star Trek, I did watch, read, and enjoy Star Trek a lot growing up, and it was something that played an intricate role in my psychological development through adolescence.
Okay. I didn't watch Star Trek until probably a year and a half ago, and that was the Next Gen that I watched, and I haven't read any of it. But I have found that at least Data in particular has probably actually led to me becoming way more critical of a lot of the scientific research and a lot of the religious arguments.
See, one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek actually is amazing in that aspect because it dives into what it is to have consciousness. Because
yes,
the episode with Data and he creates his daughter, Lol. And Starfleet finds that he's able to process things faster than any computer that exists within Star Trek. So they want her to go to an observatory and actually be studied. Turns out that her neural net is breaking down. Her neural patterns are basically suffering from a malfunction. That malfunction, ironically, is giving her something that her father has strived for years and wouldn't actually achieve it for another few years to come, which was emotion.
Yes.
That being the case, I mean, when Deanna was getting a reading off of an android, she almost did a double take, which was something that sort of rung true with me, that consciousness is something that... I'm also a transhumanist. That's something that I didn't include in the bio that I sent you. I still got to work on my transhumanist paragraph. But transhumanism is something that's an amazing perspective, and just the scientific implications of biological immortality, of integrating the artificial into the biological, is something that has always intrigued me, at least from a medical standpoint. With that being the case, Data was a representation of something that could be an alternate form of existence for humanity. And just what Data was something that was years. Writing a character like Data was years ahead of its time. I mean, just the interactions that he had with Captain Picard, Riker, Deanna Troi, just the friendship between Data and Geordi was something that gave it so many different levels. I mean, look at the interactions between Crusher and Data, too. I mean,
yeah,
there were so many levels of depth to a synthetic being there that was amazing to watch and just see develop throughout the series itself.
Which leads into the interesting... I mean, I'm thinking of the anime Ghost in the Shell, but which is very similar concept. But the concept of we might actually be able to create AI also comes into this concept of, well, you're just playing God. You know, you're not actually creating life, or if you are creating life, you know, you're stepping on God's feet and everything type concepts.
Well, to be fair, we actually did enter the age of being a god in 1997 to 98. I mean, when we created Dolly, the first cloned animal, when we created life from nothing and actually made it to where we were able to duplicate it, that's something that was a monumental effect on what it is to be a human. We now became the gods of our own being. We transcended God in that right. In that aspect, we became more than what it is to be human. We became more than our concept of a god by scientific implication.
That is entirely true. So, you mentioned transcending the concept of a god. Is that something that has to... I have absolutely no idea what transhumanism is. I've heard the term thrown around, but is that part of the transhumanism thing, or can you explain that to us?
The transcending gods aspect of transhumanism is something that's more individualistic for myself, at least.
Okay.
Because the greatest thing about religion is you get to live it forever after you die. If you take away the concept of the conception of death itself, what does religion really have to give its masses? What do you really have to preach to your flock if they are dying, if they are living past just 90 years, 100 years on the planet? I mean, once we actually do start entering into a few centuries, once we actually do start existing in those aspects, that's when we'll see a decline in religion, because the focus of humanity will shift to expansion. It will shift to different parameters in which we exist.
It's a very graceful way of saying it, I think.
It's an interesting concept. Transhumanism, at least the scientific prospect of advancing indefinitely into the future, is something that has always been of interest to me.
Right.
Which I guess would be where the idea of transcending a god would be the base idea of where it comes from. I mean, getting past the concept of a god, we have to find a way to make it marketable to someone that considers God their savior.
Right.
The only way you can do that is by introducing a way of not dying. Change the prospects of what it is to be a biological mortal. You take mortality out of the equation, the sky's the limit.
That's a good point. So, I am going to have us take a quick 5-minute break, just so we can go get drinks, go to the bathroom, do whatever. When we come back, I'm going to switch the panel around, and it's time for you to ask me questions, at least for probably 30 minutes, and then we'll go into callers or questions that anybody else has. Feel free to use this time to basically just yell at everybody who's watching if you want.
I'm actually going to go grab some water. I shall be right back.
All right. In that case, I will be back in just a moment myself. I'm going to turn off my camera and mute my microphone, and we'll be back. Okay, there we go. There's my camera again. While we're waiting for Michael to get back from the brief break, I am just going to explain some things that are going on in the current setting of PaleoBytes. Right now, PaleoBytes is a twice monthly, I hope, show. There are some things going on in personal life that are kind of preventing me from doing things as frequently as I would like. But I will be hopefully launching the new website for PaleoBytes here within the next 2 weeks. There will be a new sign-up sheet that has a lot more questions so that I can get to better know those of you who actually want to come on as a guest. Speaking of coming on as a guest, I will be opening up calls here in about 20 minutes. So if you've got questions, comments that you want to be heard on the air, if you want to come on and actually talk to Michael and myself, please send me a Skype contact request at PaleoClipper over there, or you can contact me on Facebook, same username, PaleoClipper. Send me a message over there on Facebook, over on Skype. Tell me what you want to talk about. Tell me what your questions are, and I will send you a link to participate in the show. And that's pretty much all I really have to say about that. In terms of things that are going on that I know about that you might want to check out, definitely go over, check out Dogma Debate. They are actually one of the inspirations for this show, as is the Atheist Experience, which is a call-in show. And just, check around on YouTube, see what is out there, especially if you're an atheist. There's a lot of people out there who are really wanting to get to know you, wanting to talk to you. Another plug that I'd like to put out there is for the Trevor Project, which does life-saving research, life-saving counseling for those young people who are part of the LGBTQ community. They personally, I can say, have actually helped me through some stuff, so definitely a really good community to be a part of. They are accepting, willing to listen. They're trained counselors over there, so definitely go check them out. Also, I'd recommend going and checking out atheistaudiobooks.com. If you like books, and if you, in particular, don't really have the time to actually read books, like me, despite what I have behind me, I don't actually have time to read those. But I do have time to listen to them. Atheist Audiobooks focuses a lot on things that are part of the movement, authors that are atheists, books that have atheistic points of view, and that's part of the Dogma Debate thing that's going on. But definitely check that out. And I'm working on doing an affiliation with NatureBox. So if you like snacks, especially healthy snacks, definitely go check out naturebox.com. Personally, I really, really like their peanut butter and jelly granola, even though I'm not really supposed to have gluten. It's just, it tastes so yummy. And for a fairly low price, you actually get a box of snacks in the mail once a month. And they last for quite a while. You get to choose what snacks you want, and they send it to you, and it's great. Nom noms, which are a lot better than the Reese's peanut butter cups that I've been eating. But yeah.
Did I walk in on the commercial segment?
I'm attempting to do commercials.
Are you doing commercials now, Paleo?
I'm trying. I'm actually working on getting an affiliation with NatureBox, so, and that's what I was going on about, was that I have had NatureBox before. I just signed up again to get them, and nom noms are good.
Yes. So, am I doing the questions now? Do I have to come up with questions? Okay.
Yes,
so my first question would be, can you bring the cat to your left over?
Say what?
Can you bring the cat over your shoulder to the camera?
Yeah. I'll do you one better. I'll bring you 2 cats.
You're bringing me 2 cats. I feel like I'm being spoiled now. Wow. They look just alike.
I know.
So what's the real cat's name?
The real kitty is named Genkai, but I call her Kai.
Okay.
The statue is Bast, the Egyptian goddess. And
I knew that.
yeah, as her mate over here, I have a statue of Anubis as well.
So, okay. Because I have no experience doing questions whatsoever as the host of the Age of Reason, so let me see how I'm going to do this tonight. Because this is completely spontaneous, and I had no idea I was going to be doing a Q&A. So, let's see. So, how do you like being an atheist in a state like Florida?
I actually just moved here about 4 months ago, and so far, it's fine. I actually work at I work as a dishwasher slash food prep person in the back of a coffee house that's local. And let's see, my manager that hired me in is an atheist, Buddhist atheist. My overall manager doesn't really give a damn about religion. My two co-workers that unfortunately left were also atheist. I have no idea about the guy that I work with in the back. I haven't really bothered to ask him. And the other two co-workers I have, despite the fact that they said, yes, I'll pray for you, don't really give a damn either. So I'm pretty well set, at least in terms of co-workers. I feel safe criticizing things there. I feel safe talking about evolution. I feel safe talking about, oh, hey, I'm listening to, the Atheist Experience this weekend. Maybe you should come in and see what it is too. In terms of going out into public and saying something or wearing something, I have worn a shirt that I got from the Smithsonian, which is the biological tree of life, and it says, "You are here," and it has the whole evolutionary history on it. I got one weird look when I was out, but nobody said anything. I actually felt more unsafe wearing just a simple shirt that had a mammoth on it in Tennessee than I've felt here. So it's a little bit of a switch and kind of unexpected considering this is Florida. The state that says if you're not married, you can't live together in the same room or same apartment. At least you have sex. Ah!
That sounds scary. I mean, having sex unmarried and being in the same room? How is that possible?
Poof!
This is my mind. This is it blown.
Yes, exactly.
So, what is your religious background?
I was actually raised Roman Catholic. And I have a drawer full of rosaries over there.
So, what's your thoughts on the Mother Mary? I mean, she must be a great person. From the religious background you have, you must be a huge fan.
Well, when I was actually in the religion and actually fully believes and such, I viewed Mary as more of just kind of an overmother, if that makes sense. Like she was, if you couldn't turn to your own mother, you turned to Mary. Because hey, she's the mother of God, essentially. She knows what the hell's going on. There was also the interesting experience of having the period while in church and praying to Mary to please take my menstrual cramps away. So, to give you kind of an idea, also viewed her as kind of an intermediate between me and Jesus, and then, of course, Jesus to God. So you prayed to Mary so that Mary would talk to Jesus, and then Jesus would talk to God, and hopefully your prayer would get answered that way.
Now, if I understand how she's perceived correctly, she's perceived as sort of the mother or saint of mothers, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she is considered a saint, and she's not actually, like, at least in the Roman Catholic tradition, saints aren't worshipped. They are viewed almost like God's secretaries, if that makes sense.
God's secretaries on certain topics, okay. So, what was Saint Nicholas?
Saint Nicholas was just, I mean, it depended on the church that I went to be honest. because
Everyone had a different outlook on Santa Claus.
yes, I mean Santa Claus was the guy in the red suit with the chubby belly who would bring you gifts every Christmas season. But Saint Nick or Saint Nicholas was almost used as a separate entity, if that makes sense.
Did he come around Christmas time giving gifts?
No, except for one church that I went to where we actually held kind of a Germanic tradition where we all stuck our shoes out in the hallway during class time and we came back out and they had little presents and such inside, and that was cool. I somehow ended up with 2 peppermint canes, and I was like, yeah, because I like peppermint canes. But no, I mean Saint Nick himself was more viewed as just a patron saint of giving and kindness than he was the guy in the red suit who brings you presents. Patron saint of the poor children in some cases, depending on who you talk to.
So what were your thoughts on humans riding dinosaurs before the flood?
See, okay. Give me a second to breathe.
You gotta love this line of questioning. That's all I gotta say.
That's okay. I did not remember running across creationism when I was a child. When I was growing up, I was raised the world is as old as science says it is. Dinosaurs are 65 million years old. But God created it all. And basically what happened was God said, all right, all this is going to be now, and it was all there. It wasn't on the first day God did this, on the second day God did this, on the third day God did that. So when I finally did come across what was considered legit creationism, the 6,000-year-old Earthers, I just kind of paused and stared at my computer screen like, what the fuck is this? I mean, I came across Dinotopia before I came across creationism. So my mindset was like, you guys are gotta be like some weird spin-off of Dinotopia fans or something. And then when I realized that the Creation Museum was actually a legit thing and they were really trying to teach this, I think I ended up with another bruise on my head. So it's mind-numbing. I also find it slightly hilarious at some of the drawings and some of the art, but I also feel incredibly angry and incredibly sad at the same time that this stuff is being taught to kids as legit science.
With that actually being said, though, can you actually, let's say I was religious right now, would you be able to manifest some proof that we didn't walk with dinosaurs? I mean, you can't make evidence that we didn't actually ride dinosaurs 6,000 years ago before the Great Flood. I mean, you can't really prove that footsteps with dinosaur tracks existing in the same concept and being conceptualized together isn't something that you can prove to me that doesn't exist, because how can you say that when the power of God can help?
I'm sorry, I'm only chuckling because I know your actual stance. Let's go specifically with the example that was given of the dinosaur footprints alongside human footprints. I've actually, my field of study is paleontology. I know the tracks you're talking about. They're in Texas, and they're not actually human footprints. If you actually go and look at the strata and the layout themselves and actually follow these so-called human footprints, as you actually look at them, they are half indentations of a dinosaur footprint. What happened is you had a herd of dinosaurs walking through mud, and in some places the mud wasn't quite mud. It was still slightly dried and caked. So as the dinosaurs walked, they didn't leave a full indentation of their foot. And the particular dinosaur that it is, which is a 4-footed, I'm walking, I have a long neck thing, they actually have 3 toes, as it were. And if you only get the impression of one of the toes, it looks surprisingly like a human footprint. It's kind of crazy. But as you follow the tracks, it becomes clear, hey, wait, this isn't actually a human trackway. These are half dinosaur footprints. I'm sorry. I know it seems like the perfect example of dinosaurs and humans walking together, but it just isn't. And this, in terms of me saying, hey, you can't prove that we didn't, I have to say, I'm sorry, but what you're looking for has not been found. There is no example of dinosaurs and humans actually coexisting. So really, the fact of me saying I have to disprove that this didn't happen is kind of backwards. The creationist is the one claiming that dinosaurs and humans walk together in direct contradiction to the evidence that we have. So really, they're the ones with the burden of proof. Sorry.
With the burden of proof being outlined, how can you actually say evolution is real when chimpanzees still exist on the planet?
That is exactly the same question of saying, okay, we have Americans, so why are there still Europeans? The concept is exactly the same. Chimps and humans, we are both apes, and we come from a common descent. We did not evolve from chimps. Chimps and humans evolved from something completely different than a human or a chimp. Your great times 1,000 grandfather probably looked fairly different than you, with some striking similarities. He probably had 5 fingers. He probably had 5 toes, we hope. And ears, nose, mouth, other orifices, your choice.
So are you trying to say that my great-granddaddy from 5,000 times great was, are you trying to say my ancestor was a monkey?
And so was mine.
But yes, let's see, what's the next question? So, what are your thoughts on the idea that religion can save us all through rapture?
That's actually an interesting point that I haven't really given all that much credence to, because of the way I was brought up. There wasn't a rapture where the world would end and everybody would suddenly puff away and leave their clothing on. I mean, I remember watching the movie Left Behind and thinking it was probably one of the stupidest science fiction movies I'd ever seen. I didn't realize it was supposed to be a biblical thing. It didn't click. Yet when I watched the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I knew immediately it was about Jesus. I don't know. But in terms of the idea of actually like saving us from what? What do we really need saving from? Other than the mentality that we are all broken.
The evil of the world, God will save us from.
Well, what about those animals in nature that kill each other and hunt each other for their own living?
God created man to have dominion over the animals of the planet. With that being the case, this is just how it has to be, because God said so in the great book.
The Book of Mormon? Sorry. I am sorry to all those Mormon watchers out there, but I happened to be glancing over, and the feed that I'm reading to make sure that nobody's asking questions, somebody mentioned Mormons.
The Mormons. But yes, when it comes down to it, though, what are your thoughts of the Mormons?
I am a fan of the new My Little Pony show. As part of this fandom, I decided I was going to create a My Little Pony that is an atheist. Part of her persona was, I'm going to go debate the Mormon ponies. So I mean, it's Mormonism in general is, to me, just another variant of Christianity, because that is what it is. They believe in Jesus Christ. They believe that, if you follow this path, you will be saved and you will go up to heaven with God and such. Obviously, there are some unique differences, one of which being, hey, if you're a male in the Mormon church and you do XX next, you get your own planet. Which, I mean, okay, freaking awesome. That's a new thing that I haven't seen in a religion before. But in general, I view a lot of the Western religions, the monotheistic religions in particular, as being just a tad bit nutty.
Now, when it comes to them being a tad bit nutty, what are your thoughts on the concept of magic underwear?
I used to wear what is called a scapula, which is a little square piece of cloth that's been blessed that has an engraving of a saint on it, and it drapes over your head, and you've got one here and one goes on the back. I think it's a fairly specific to Roman Catholicism. I'm not certain, because a lot of people haven't really seemed to hear about this, but it served kind of the same function as what the magic underwear did. You wear this and you're protected from Satan and other sins and temptation. To a Mormon who honestly believes, that's probably the best thing they can do for themselves, because that is something that they take wholeheartedly and seriously. And if your religion means that much to you that you're going to wear something that honestly makes you look really unattractive for bedtime, more power to you. But in terms of it actually having legit magic powers, sorry, it's flimsy cloth. It's not going to stop a bullet coming at you. It's really not. I hate to break it to you. But for the humor aspect of it, I'd probably try it on.
So you would endorse magic underwear to at least try them once. I understand.
Yes. Same thing with food. Try everything once. If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it again.
Like I said before, I'm a fan of... I think that God is a douchebag. He took the guy that was made of bread and wine away from man. That's all I got to say. You want to know how you're going to fuck up humanity's future? Take away the guy that can give them free booze.
For some reason, Thor comes to mind, but
hey,
seriously, Norse mythology, freaking awesome.
That's another way that Jesus is better or is worse than Thor. I mean, at least Thor has saved the world a few times with the Avengers. Has Jesus ever done that? Nope. Jesus out there with a few superpowers and let him save the planet a few times. Maybe I'll devote myself to Jesus, but until he actually pulls off some of the miracles that Thor has with the Avengers and just some of the tricks that Thor's been able to do, when it comes down to it, it's just, I'm sorry, with Thor, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, Thor, Odin's son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I actually got to say, if they did a death battle together, I would actually give it to Thor, because I actually don't think Jesus would be worthy to lift the hammer.
It's an interesting perspective, actually.
Which big guy would be able to lift Thor's hammer?
That actually is a really interesting. I'm gonna have to consider that one. Thank you.
I'm actually working on that one myself. But yeah, I mean, seriously, the guy's a douchebag up there. He takes away the guy that basically turns water to wine, feeds 1 million people with like 4 fish, and walks on water. I mean, not to mention, you could Jesus would turn some people into vampires. I'm just saying. I mean, you become enough of an alcoholic, you're going to track down the guy that bleeds wine.
Yeah.
But yes, so what is the inspiration behind PaleoClipper and being the host of Paleo Bytes and creating Paleo Bytes herself?
PaleoClipper is actually a jammed together name that I came up with myself because I needed a new email address way back in like 2004. Um, it is an amalgamation of paleontology, which of course is the field of study that I've focused on for quite a while, and clipper as in I have a cosmetology license, and clippers are what I used to cut hair. Um, so I just kind of shoved the two together. PaleoClipper has since become my username everywhere on the internet because it's something that people just haven't used. Um, I go by Paleo or Silver online, so in terms of what you can call me. As per Paleo Bytes, the name of the show is actually a bit of a pun in and of itself. For BYTES is the computer byte, but the name basically I came up with of seeing a lot of these creationists and a lot of atheists even asking very loaded, very bait questions, like answer this and I will debate you very, very quickly. So why the hell not bite on the question?
That's a very good interpretation of just the concept of your persona and the show name itself.
So,
But
yeah.
I guess that leads me into my last question. So, what is your deconversion story, and when did you officially come out as a supporter of the LBGT community?
Oh.
Two loaded questions that are going to take up the next 6 minutes.
The deconversion story can take up a full hour if I want it to.
So good minds, believe me. I've actually had it fill an hour and a half in the past.
Right. So, deconversion quick version, because one of my previous episodes, I think I actually went on for 20 minutes. Basically, raised Roman Catholic. I was adopted when I was 4 from being taken out of an abusive family home in which my birth mother failed to protect, essentially. So when I came into my family, which are the people who adopted me, they are my family, they were Roman Catholic. They raised me to believe that despite what had happened to me, God would always love me, they would always love me, and things kind of went on from there. When I was, I think probably about 8, 9, I came to this concept of I'm blind in my right eye. I have floaters. And I came to this concept of these little black things that I was seeing darting in and out of my vision were demons. And had this idea of, I can chase these things away because I believe in Jesus and I have this exquisite power that he's given me. Yeah. Eventually, we fast forward to high school, beginning year of high school, 9th grade. My dad, in a matter of 3 weeks, is not only diagnosed with cancer, but dies. He was studying to become a deacon in the church, which is basically the intro level in the Roman Catholic Church. And we had been going to church pretty much twice a week, once on Saturday night to a teenage thing that was like this really joyful, cheerful rock and roll music type thing, and then again on Sunday to a more traditional service because Dad didn't feel like he'd gone to church that other one. We went from that to all of a sudden, not only was I not being told to focus on my rosary and my prayers every morning, to we may or may not go to church this week. And I was also at the same time in my religion history class told to do a research paper on the evils of X religion that I pulled out of a hat. I got Wicca. There happened to be a girl at my school who was Wiccan, so I decided to interview her. Given the circumstances and me telling God in a prayer, look, if you don't heal my dad, the devil has a new bitch. Those words exactly. Given all of that going on at once, the Wiccan made a hell of a lot more sense to me at the time. So I went from Roman Catholicism to Wicca, in which I had this strange concept that basically all the deities and all the pagan gods were misinterpreted as angels in Christianity. That's what my mind went to. Lacking a coven when I switched high schools from a Catholic to a public school, I just kind of didn't really care anymore. Um, when I graduated high school, I started volunteering and then working at a fossil site in which I heard for the first time, how does this relate to the flood? What flood? What are you talking about? Noah's flood. What? That started me on that simple question, started me to really start looking into what are you talking about? And I came across the word atheist. And I was like, well, what is atheist? So I started looking this up and looking at everything else and being like, okay, evidently I align with this, but I hesitated on calling myself an atheist because my mom was still religious. I saw how the religious people did actually kind of blow up when they saw the atheist forums and such. So I didn't really say anything for a while. But I got used to the arguments. I realized, hey, I obviously don't adhere to this concept of a god. I don't adhere to this religious arguments. I don't feel it anymore. It wasn't until I came across somebody else and flat asked them, is there a god? And they said no. Did I honestly feel comfortable saying, yes, I'm an atheist. I came out as an actual atheist in 2012. I'm sorry, not 2012, 2011. About a month and a half before I actually got married. I got a tattoo on my lower back of the A with the swoosh around it, in my own handwriting. Showed it to my mom, and she flipped. That did not go over well. Ended up with me going upstairs and bawling my eyes out. That led into me really, really not wanting to tell the rest of my family that I was bi. And the concept of not telling them was further cemented when the whole Duck Dynasty thing came about. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
Because there was a comment that my mom swears she doesn't remember saying, but yeah, if I ever found out that you were lesbian, I just wouldn't be able to accept it. And that hurt. And I tried telling the rest of my family, hey, everybody is equal. They're not doing anything to us. Just live and let live. In terms of actually saying, hey, I support the LGBTQ community, it's not really been a, hey, I'm going to say I support them. It's been more of a, it's rather obvious by the way I will actually stand up for somebody who's gay or transgender that my family just knows that I support them. It's never been a, look, I need to sit down and tell you this. I still have yet to have the conversation of sitting down and saying, hey, I need to tell you that I honestly do not always feel as though I am a girl. Probably rather evident by the way I'm dressed tonight. But I haven't done that conversation yet. I honestly fear it because I don't know how she's going to react. I don't know how the rest of my family is going to react. I have some individuals in my family that have actually said, if I had the chance to, I would shoot my gay brother in the face if he turned out to be gay. I have actually had my nephew say, yeah, gay bashing is the best thing ever.
Well, thank you for answering my questions tonight, Paleo. It's been a pleasure questioning you, and I want to say it's been a pleasure having you on Paleo Bytes. If there's... I don't know how to really follow up on that one because it's. I feel like going with the Age of Reason. It's just it's like an in. But
yeah,
yes, so we do enter the second phase of the Q&A
yeah.
from our people that are watching. So if anyone has questions for me or Paleo, feel free to put them in the comment section somewheres.
I'm not seeing much of anybody really being active, so I'm going to actually end up putting the link to join on the Facebook page. And I'm going to put that link in the comments so that you can share it as well. Hopefully we'll get somebody coming on. If I suppose we can kind of chat a bit about whatever, and if we don't get anybody coming on in probably the next, what do you say, 5 minutes, we'll go ahead and end the show?
Yes, I would have to agree with that.
I was going to say, you look rather tired.
I'm fighting it. I am enjoying the time here. It's just the old Sandman's basically on my doorstep right now. It's like I go grocery shopping after this too, so that's gonna be fun.
Oh, jeez. Go get some caffeine, dude.
Energy drinks are basically on the top of the list, not to mention flavored creamer, soy milk, and coffee.
Coffee. Are you lactose intolerant?
No, I'm not. I just like soy.
Okay. I actually prefer the almonds and coconut milk mix myself.
So do I, for the most part, but when I don't drink that, I usually just go with soy, vanilla. It's pretty good.
Yeah, the coffee house that I work at we have a couple different choices of milk that I have to go and shop for every single day. We have whole milk, skim milk, organic whole milk, soy milk that's not flavored, and then almond milk that's flavored like vanilla, and then of course half and half. And it's like we've got 6 different dairy-ish choices. It's like, do we really need to have all of this?
That is an interesting concept. I mean, if you're going to have 50 different milks, at least have a reason for them.
Yes, and I mean, it's awesome that we have that many choices because we also have a gluten-free option for our breads when people come in. So, I mean, I'm thankful that we at least, in its own little way, are accepting of everybody.
Exactly. And I've got to agree with that. I mean, you make a great point there. As long as we're actually agreeing with each other, that's one of the best ways to actually go. I mean, whether we are all humans at the end of the day, so agreeing with each other in that concept, and at least respecting the fact that you're looking at another Homo sapien when you're talking to someone, is usually the best way to go with a conversation.
Yeah. Remember, we're all human, and we're all little apes.
Exactly, and I have to agree that I'm not really a little ape anymore. I'm usually I'm a very fluffy ape, as they would say. But with that being the case, yes, I am a very fluffy ape. So if anyone ever asks, fluffy apes still exist. You're looking at one. That's why when somebody says, why are there still monkeys on the planet, I'm just going to be like, yep, I am a chimpanzee. And you not see my opposable thumbs.
It's too bad we don't have opposable toes.
Have you ever actually walked up to a zoo attraction or like a animal exhibit at the zoo and be like, what up there? I got thumbs. Later.
I haven't actually done that.
Opposable thumbs for the win. I'm out of here. That's why you're in a cage and I'm not. Opposable thumbs.
Although I did get the shit scared out of me by a baboon at a zoo in North Carolina. I completely forgot that baboons are attracted to the color red. Yeah. Male baboon. Baboons scare me anyway. I don't know why, but there's something about the fact when you yawn and you have 4-inch long canines that kind of freaks me out. Hello, foxtail Foxhole.
Foxhole, Foxhole Atheist, welcome. You are a Foxhole Atheist in my side. I mean, as far as Foxhole Atheist goes, damn, man, you basically are the Foxhole Atheist in the world, my friend. Randy Bevan, welcome.
I can't breathe.
Do you have any questions for me, Randy Bevan?
That's pretty funny.
Dude, I'm on a roll tonight, and it's actually been clean humor, too, so I'm sort of just rolling with it. And we got Lou. Foxhole Atheist on my side.
Awesome.
I mean, as far as Foxhole Atheist goes, damn, man, you basically are the Foxhole Atheist in the world, my friend. We're listening to me. Welcome.
Welcome,
Do you
guest.
have any questions for me, Randy Bevan?
It's still playing in your background, Lou.
Lou, turn me off. Turn me off, Lou. Dude, I'm on a roll tonight, and it's actually been clean humor, too. Yeah, I know you're on a roll, but he needs to turn you down. And we got Lou. Hello, Lou. Hello, Lou. Damn, man. Basically, you're the Foxhole Atheist in the world, my friend. Lou, you need to. Thank you.
Okay. Just real quick, both guests, if you can actually exit either the YouTube page or the presentation page that you're on, because we're getting feedback of the actual call. You can go ahead and unmute yourself when you can.
Yeah, Lou, it just went off. Lou's like, oh, okay. He's like, I'm sorry. He's trying to talk and he's muted. You got to unmute, Lou. You got to unmute.
I'm
Lou.
trying. I'm trying to.
There we go. Welcome to the Magic Sandwich Show.
Welcome to the Magic Sandwich Show. I was going to say, welcome to Atheist on Air.
There you go. Anyway, so questions, comments.
Questions for me? Comments for me? Randy, you look amazing right now.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to be on a live anything. So.
He's in a house today.
He's like, hi, world. I'm the Foxhole Atheist.
I got a light somewhere where you might be able to see me.
I have a light somewhere where... I'm surprised you're not wearing a hat right now.
Yeah. Where's the hats?
Where is the hat?
I got one.
You got to go get the fedora. I mean...
I have a hat.
I put it on the hat. I suggest wear the hat. Now we've actually introduced some style into the Foxhole Atheist persona. Look at this. The man's beautiful. His face was made for a fedora.
All right, so I am the Foxhole Atheist, Randy Bevan. And I would like to ask Michael Phelps,
the Neo-Atheist,
host of The Age of Reason, and
co-founder of Secular
TV, vice president and operations manager.
Liberace of YouTube.
What is your favorite color?
You didn't call me the Liberace of YouTube. I mean,
I forgot
the whole spiel and didn't even throw in the Liberace of YouTube. How's that work? How the heck does that work? I mean, Jeremiah Bannister would be rolling over in his chair right now.
Oh, he'll be all right.
Answer the question.
What is your favorite color? I think that's the important question of the day.
I thought it was, am I the Liberace?
We're trying to do the hard-hitting questions.
But my favorite color is Foxhole Atheist. It's a beautiful shade, and it's a cross between brown and red. It makes one of my former co-hosts look like a ginger.
That one? It's a blend,
Foxhole shade red.
That is I never thought of that, actually, when I did that. Red fox, red color in the background. It works.
Yeah.
That does make sense. But, Lou, do you have a question for me since Foxhole Atheist decided to go with the what is my favorite color, and I turned it right back around on him?
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing we don't know your favorite color still.
Dude, Randy is my favorite color, the Foxhole Atheist. I mean, that color right there, that shade of white, how could you get away from that shade of white, man? That shade of white is what makes it to where I can wake up and do what I do in the morning.
I'm going to
Masturbate?
take a random. I'm going to take a random guess and say it's neon green.
Finally, someone knows my real favorite color. It's not like I built a YouTube persona around a color, a movie, and sort of went from there. I mean, yeah.
Well, it doesn't necessitate that it's your favorite color.
It does if I use it on everything. I mean, the only thing that I'm really like might give you a hint that I might like orange is this little guy up here.
Other side.
Other side, right there, right there, right
There you go.
there, right there, right there,
Closer.
right there,
Warmer.
There you go.
right there. So yeah, that's my favorite color right there. I'm going to go with the orange and white secular TV logo is my favorite color.
So,
I like green. There's my
You like
hat.
neon green too? No
So
one likes
Lou.
Green Bay. Put it away.
Everybody loves Green Bay.
No one likes Green Bay. That's what
Everybody's born with the love of Green Bay. You just deny your love of Green Bay.
Green Bay is like the official team of liberals.
To be fair, though, Green Bay never actually died on the cross for anyone or saved anyone's life. I mean, it didn't go up to heaven after 3 days of being dead, did it? Green Bay isn't Jesus.
No.
Jesus is Jesus.
But just go outside and look at the trees. It's proof of Green Bay.
what happened to the
Even
show
with
suddenly?
this,
I'm sorry,
but we
I don't
still
know.
have to understand that Green Bay isn't Jesus. I mean, only Jesus could turn water to wine.
I thought he was made of wine.
I think I'm
He
answering. I
was
think
made
I'm
of
answering
wine.
lots of questions.
Yes.
So,
Lou, did you have a
Yeah.
question? Comment.
Comments?
magic.
Or just telling us to be shut up.
No, man. No, you asked what was happening to the show. I'm like, you're the one that had a Neo come.
That's a good point.
So let me ask you this, Mike. I got a real question for you. So
I'm an open book.
you've done a handful of interviews now under this banner, and I'm just curious. For you, what are some of the most interesting points that you've gotten to talk about with yourself from these interviews, like as a whole?
I would have to actually say diving into the Salvation Army is something that I've always wanted to do as an atheist, and the last 3 interviews that I've actually been able to do in the last 3 to 4 week time frame have been amazing on that aspect. Being able to show that a nonprofit organization that basically is thought to be a charity does have a religious dark undertone to it is something that I'm glad to help sort of shed light on. And being able to do that allows me, at least in some way, it seems like I'm serving a function.
Agreed. Good answer. I like that.
Lou, did you freeze?
Oh, what? Did I? I hope not.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, my goodness.
So, I've been watching off and on in the background while I was making dinner. Have to forgive me.
Cheater.
So let me ask you this, Paleo, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
What do you think so far in this interview has been one of the most interesting points to cover?
For me, I actually do have to agree with Mike, the whole Salvation Army thing. I mean, to me, all I've ever seen is the really, really annoying ringing of the bell. I like bells. There's a crystal bell right behind me over here that you can see. I have a whole collection of bells, but ringing it incessantly makes me want to grab it and hit you upside the head with it. But, I mean, hell, I wear a bell in my hair to work. I mean, come on. But, I mean, that's pretty much all I knew about the Salvation Army. I didn't actually realize that it was a whole religious focus where you actually were acting like a soldier. I didn't realize that. So that in and of itself is been really interesting to me to learn about. Of course, the whole Trekkie spin-off there was also fun.
What can I say? I'm a man of many layers. I'm like an onion.
Aren't we all?
We all
We
are
make
like
it-
an
Fair
onion.
enough.
At some point, when you cut us, do we not make the other person cry?
Something like that. So we may have our analogy somewhat mixed up in some way, shape, and or form, but all I gotta say is Heisenberg, take it away. You got another question?
That's
Well-
a damn good point. Which one of them?
Which what?
Which
one?
Heisenberg?
That Heisenberg, the one with the Heisenberg, the one with the spaghetti soup hat,
Yeah, the original.
the original Heisenberg, the
So
oldest Heisenberg of the Heisenberg clan, Heisenberg.
you're just making that complicated now.
Mr. Heisenberg, don't make this complicated. Just be Heisenberg. So, Lou, do you have a question?
Oh gosh, what I just no, right before I joined, it's kind of like, how the hell do you put up with the family like that? It's like threatening to kill you and stuff, basically.
Well, I actually got a funny story behind that one. One of my uncles is a leader of the Tea Party movement here in upstate New York, Elmira Heights. Uncle Brad, if you're out there, tip my fedora to you. He actually is the leader of the Tea Party movement. He went to Glenn Beck's Million Man March in Washington, D.C. And he basically, the second he found out I was an atheist, it caused issues in the family. Let's just put it that way. To the fact I haven't actually been down to see my family that lives in that area for close to 3 years now, which has become an issue. Being around somebody that actually thinks that the Tea Party movement is a viable option from a political standpoint gives you a newfound perspective on what politics are. Especially when they're brought home to your own family. I mean, when my mother passed away, it became a challenge because that's when I came out as an atheist to my family, and it just became a huge undertaking to sort of deal with my outing to my family and my mother passing away within the same 3-month time frame. That was something that was a little much to handle.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, you know, my mother recently passed away, and you've been very supportive about that. And so this is a really good opportunity maybe to ask you a little bit more about that story.
Like I've said before, Randy Bevan, I am an open book. Feel free to ask me anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was kind of my way. So can you tell us a little more about the story of your mother's passing?
Well, my mother passed away at the age of 45. She would have been actually 49, 50 this year. When she passed, she had epilepsy. Epilepsy was a huge strain on her cardiovascular system. She had heart problems all throughout later on in life. And she was trying to lift a TV because that's the type of person she was. She wasn't going to let limitations limit the type of person that she would be. And she basically, her heart gave out on her when she was trying to lift a TV that was too heavy for her to lift. Sad aspect of that was my little brother, that was 6 at the time, was the one that actually found the body. So that was a issue that will probably have psychological ramifications in the future. He seems like he's developing okay mentally from at least a psychological standpoint. So he lives with my uncle in Colorado, which a lot of great things come out of Colorado. I have nothing bad to say about that state whatsoever because it gives birth to people like the Foxhole Atheist and Albany Rose, of course. But I digress from that. I actually think that my little brother being with my uncle is something that is one of the best things to come out of this situation because at least he gets to be with our last full-blooded living relative, and be raised by the same generation that my mother was from. I mean, my uncle didn't have any children. He basically stepped in and helped with the situation with my brother and the whole custody dispute we had to deal with when it came to that. So it was an interesting experience, and in the end, it had a happy ending. He's with family, and my mother lives on in her children. She lives on in the inspiration that she helped develop within us ourselves. I mean, the person I am is my mother is indirectly responsible for developing the ability to reason and be as analytical as I really am. I mean, she's somebody I have to thank for that every day. I mean, that's something that carries on, and it's a key component to who I am. So every time that I am analytical about something in some way, shape, and or form, I'm still honoring the memory of my mother and the presence that she helped bring into existence.
And how long ago was this?
4 years.
4 years, okay. So a year before you left, I guess moved away? Did you live there in Colorado with your brother?
No, I've never actually lived in Colorado. I've always, my brother, and me were actually born in Syracuse, New York, where I'm from. I was actually born right up at Cross Hines, not Cross Hines, but Cross Hospital, up on SU Hill. But yes, I haven't actually been to Colorado. My brother's come here to visit a few times since he's left, but I plan on going sooner or later. It's not like I have a development team that is there now, too, that I indirectly have to go and sort of shoot the shit with. So
barbecue and beer one day.
You have somebody down here in Florida, too.
I don't know. Florida still scares me. Any state that was ran by a Bush just is a bad aftertaste.
Yeah, but Wild Bill lives in Florida. I feel sorry for you.
No snow. That's all I have to say.
So my wife just showed up back at home, so I gotta go.
All right.
But it was great finding out some more about you, Mike, and getting to ask you some questions.
Not a problem, Randy. We'll talk later.
See you later, Paleo, Lou.
Later.
Lou, do you have any more questions?
I don't know.
You don't know if you don't know, because knowing is don't knowing, and knowing was be half the battle, but if you don't know, then knowing would be like not knowing.
I might use that because Monkey Paw has started a dang poetry war on Facebook. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
So we actually have a I don't know if this is a serious question or not, but guys, check the chat.
Okay, so let me see what this question is, because since this is the Focus on Me show, let me actually see what this question is.
You gotta read it.
Hold on. I've got this. Let me put on my serious radio voice. If evolution is true, why are there still rocks? Shouldn't they all have evolved into monkeys by now? Well, the reason that rocks haven't evolved into monkeys yet is because they're inanimate objects, and they're just an atomic structure of molecular molecules. Their atomic structure, they do not have cells. To evolve into a monkey, you must be a cellular structure. This is like our atheist rocks. Our rocks atheist argument. Oh my god. I blame Bionic Dance for this.
Lou, you got any statement to that?
What do you mean, if evolution is true?
If evolution is true, it's just a theory. You got to remember that, Lou.
No.
It's only a theory. It's only a theory. That's basically what you got to remember.
Evolution is a fact. The theory of evolution is a theory.
But it's a theory, man. It exists as a theory because there's the theory of evolution too, man. I mean, it may be a fact somewheres, but you got to understand that it's a theory too, because those rocks evolved into monkeys, but we still have monkeys. How's that work, man?
But we still have monkeys.
Start from grinning so wide.
Why don't we have giant-sized monkeys? I mean, like those. Why didn't Everest turn into a monkey thousands of years ago when it became?
What?
That should be how you train. That's how you dictate the tallest mountain in the world. It turns into a monkey.
Train the trees to be monkeys?
Train the rocks to be monkeys.
I have no idea what to say to that.
That's like a rock farm. We could actually go get some pet rocks and train them to evolve into monkeys.
That would be a very interesting experiment, actually.
Yeah.
Next, I'm going to go find some fossilized dinosaur bones and make them evolve into monkeys.
I can help you with this.
Apparently, we're bringing out the dinosaur bones, and we're going to make them evolve into monkeys.
Actual dinosaur bone.
Can you make that evolve into a monkey?
No. It is a reptile. Edmontosaurus, specifically.
Can you make it evolve into a alligator?
Well, there's skulls on the shelf.
Maybe. Yeah, I have skulls. Oh, those skulls. Those are actually modern animals down there.
Oh.
There's actually skulls all over my room. Up above where my computer is, I have a saber-toothed cat, a dire wolf, an alligator, a trilobite, a few other things that I can't actually see from this angle. And then you've got a bobcat, a red panda, a Chinese water deer, a crane of some kind, I still don't know what it is, and a muskrat skull back behind me.
Are you collecting endangered species?
Not intentionally. I also have a hummingbird skull.
Oh.
So, does anybody else have any questions, or are we ending earlier?
I don't know.
Any other questions, statements? Give me your favorite book.
That's a tough one.
Letters to a Young Contrarian. Contrarian.
Okay.
Contrarian? Contrarian. I always butcher that word.
Something like that.
Contrarian.
There we go.
Yeah, I have to go with...
God's... No, yeah. I'd go with, Hitchbook. Yeah, Hitchbook.
Okay. Lou?
Yeah, I have to go with Callahan's Place by Spider Robinson because I'm stuck at the age of 15 maturity-wise. So
That's okay.
it's really funny stuff.
Well, in terms of comedy, I'm going to plug a book that I've plugged a couple of times, and it's called Fool. And it is a retelling of the story of King Lear from the point of view of the court jester. It is vulgar, but it is hilarious.
Ooh. You should mail that to me.
I have a copy of it over there. Christopher Moore is the author. All of his stuff is amazing.
Christopher Moore?
Yes.
Really? I've read like 3 or 4 of his books. I especially like the first one I read was Lamb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Matt, if you have not read Lamb yet, the full title is Lamb, the Gospel According to Biff, Christ's Childhood Friend. Definitely go read it.
It's a must-read for all atheists.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And religious people, just because it's freaking hilarious.
Oh, yeah. If you want them to get angry.
Ah.
Which I do, but...
Well, with that, I call a conclusion to this episode of Paleo Bytes. Matt, Lou, thank you both for joining me.
Mike?
Sorry, what?
Mike?
Mike. What did I call you?
Matt.
Oh. Michael Phelps, thank you for joining us on this episode of Paleo Bytes. I apologize for calling you the wrong name.
This is what I get for living by a persona that even atheist. Next time I'm just going to make I'm going to make a new lower third that has just my name on it.
It's okay. And Lou, I appreciate you coming on, asking questions, joining in the conversation. I definitely invite you to come on to an episode on your own if you'd like to. Send me an email. It's PaleoClipper@gmail.com. And for any of those watching this episode now or in the future or possibly in the past, if you are a Time Lord, definitely email me, like, comment, subscribe. Obviously, I am on Facebook and Twitter and pretty much everywhere else on the internet. Just look for the name PaleoClipper. Yeah, so thank you guys for joining me, and I shall see everybody in 2 weeks, hopefully, so long as I have somebody who actually wants to talk to me. See ya.
See ya.